And here's the main reason why. The main reason why was Paul said, the writer of Hebrews in chapter 2 said he got the information from somebody else. Paul will never admit that. Okay? So that's a fundamental reason why many people say Paul can't be the writer, because Paul always sees himself as receiving revelation, inspiration directly to people. Okay? Because he's the one unusually born. The 27 books were written over a 10... Paul? I'll read it. I'll read it. The writer is admitting he got the information from somebody else. Matter of fact, Luke is going to admit the same thing. He says right here, he says, for this reason, chapter 2, we must pay close attention to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away from it. And if the word spoken through the angels proved unalterable, and every transgression and disobedience received just penalty, how shall we escape so that salvation, after it was first spoken through the Lord, it was confirmed to us by those who heard. And God, so that's why people say that sentence right there, Paul wouldn't say it. You never seen any of his books where he says, I'm getting it from the ones of John 17. Remember when I read John 17, he says, I will give my words to you. So the revelation, he's specifying in the revelation who it's going to. He's being very specific. Why? Because the New Testament, that's why you get the coming together of the Bible. They're looking at who wrote it, because he's saying you. So that's why Luke was a problem. Make sense? Okay. So this particular person who wrote it, some people believe, look at chapter 4, chapter 5. He says, verse 11, concerning him we have much to say, but it is hard to explain since you have become dull of hearing. So this writer was among them. You know that? He continues. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you have need again for someone to teach you the elementary principles of the oracles, for you have need for milk, not solid food. So anytime a person doesn't study the Bible and really live it, they regress to being an infant Christian. But he's saying, I had to teach you, and so we got to figure out who's this person. So most people, though, attribute this book, this letter, to Paul. But some don't. I don't know. Nobody's given me, when I research it, a definitive answer that could X out everybody else. But obviously, when they pulled the books together, they felt that this author was inspired. So you got revelation, inspiration, and then we have illumination. So the people who received the revelation also received inspiration. Okay? So you could get a word, but it could still be a mystery. So they were inspired to write this word, and we get the third element, illumination. I don't know if I made that clear yesterday. So you got revelation, the writers had inspiration, they were inspired. Paul literally said, I was inspired to write it. But we get illumination. Okay? We don't get the first two. We get the last one. Okay? I showed that to you yesterday, right? I literally walked it through yesterday and showed you the scriptures where they're saying these things. Not me, not Paul Cannings. I don't want to do that. I'm not here for me. I'm a messenger of a risen king. Now here he goes. The 27 books were written over a 10-year period from about AD 45 to 95. AD, I'm sure you know, after his death. So 45 years after his death, the first letter was written. Why? These disciples are getting older, and they want to leave information. So they're writing these books because they're getting older. Think about it for a minute. Think about it for a minute. Think about it for a minute. John, right? You see how human it is, but yet holy. Okay, John is an old man when he's writing 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. And he tells them, He's an old man. Well, who was John? John was a young man with Jesus. Right? So John now is old. John walks 60 miles to the Isles of Patmos. Right? Who's the first church he writes back to? Ephesus. Why? He just left Ephesus and walked for 60 miles to the Isles of Patmos. So he could write back to them, because he talked a lot about love in 1 John, and says, you're missing your first love. I taught you about love, but when the Spirit of God gives me inspiration, your problem is not how solid a church you is, you just lack love. And the person you don't love then is God, because you're following Gnostic philosophers. You're not following the Bible. So John couldn't write about the church of Ephesus because he just left it. So when you start learning bibliology, the Bible makes sense. Now, the New Testament book was probably written then because the spread of the dominant Greek language. You know, English is scattered all over the world. It doesn't mean everybody else stops speaking Swahili. It just means it becomes a dominant language. So it's because of spread of British dominance. If you're fighting somebody with spears and they have bullets, they tend to win. Not because Africans don't have the ability to fight. They just don't have bullets. So to divide Africans against each other, they gave Africans guns. But Africa was actually one nation under one leader called Nimrod. Nimrod ruled Africa. And then came division. So in the times that we're writing about, the Greeks have a lot of influence. And in the Greeks having a lot of influence, they brought their language with it. Romans were barbarians. They just killed people and dominated the world. So when Rome is doing this, you got Latin first, then you got Greeks. The Greeks were the brain trust of Rome. So that's why you have a lot of Greek mythology. Okay? You got a lot of Greek stuff going on. And that became the dominant language. So that's why the New Testament is in Greek. Whereas the Old Testament, you got a solid group of people, Israel, speaking Hebrew. So you write it to this niche of people that you're developing through Abraham, Hebrew. But when you go into all the world, who's the dominant language in all the world? Greeks. So who do you find to go to all the world? A person like Paul, who knows 9 languages and has Roman descent, but a Jew, so he could speak Greek. Make sense? So that's why at Pentecost, when they are speaking, they go, these are unlearned men. What are they up there doing, talking like they're talking? And so, because they're coming from Hebrew, okay, I'm not trying to start, this one would be an atomic bomb, not a time, so I'm not trying to go there, okay? I'm just explaining the thing. So please don't ask me questions about this I'm going to talk about, because that would not be a dynamite or a grenade. That would be an atomic bomb. So please, I don't want an atomic bomb. I could barely make it through the dynamite, okay? So when you're coming from Hebrew, right? Aramaic, Hebrew, and you're coming to go to the world, guess what's wrong with the speakers? They don't know the language of the world. They don't. They weren't supposed to. So guess what you have to do? Anoint them with tongues. So that's why they list all the nations. Once they say the word tongues means glossa, it means a language. So once they start listing these people speaking, they start listing the nations. Because they want us to understand the Jews, right, scattered everywhere. But what brought them back? The Passover. Okay, so why is the Passover big? Because that's how they were born as a nation. Okay, they're leaving out of Egypt, blood on the doorposts, right? So they're leaving out of Egypt. God chose what salvation is going to look like. Blood on the doorpost, firstborn. You got to go through the Red Sea. Please understand, the Red Sea, you could just walk past the Red Sea. You literally could do that. You could literally go to the Red Sea on a regular day and just walk through it. But what does God do? Put it at flood stage. Why? He has to baptize them. See, baptism is not new in the New Testament. Baptism happened twice in the Old. Noah, the earth is sinful, I bury it. Salvation is on the water. I put a nation in Egypt for them to be born. You know the story. They're having so many babies. Pharaoh said, we got to do something. So they're born. When they're born, blood on the doorpost, firstborn. Who's Jesus Christ? The firstborn of a new generation. Now, once I get them to do that, I'm going to put the Red Sea at flood stage, open it up, and swallow their enemies. Sin is in the Red Sea. Salvation is in the wilderness. He baptized them all at one time. You see what I'm saying? So, when we now come to this nation, it's one group of people moving around over and over again, right? But they don't listen to God, so they end up in Babylon. Some stayed. That's why you got the book of Esther, to tell you what happened to those stayed. They stayed. So now you got this people, and all they know is Aramaic and Hebrew. So when you're standing there in Acts chapter 1 verse 8 saying, go to all the nations, they don't know how to talk. So there came tongues. But the man that I'm going to send, I'm going to pick a guy that knows 9 languages, because he could talk to the unknown God, philosophy. He came from Rome. So he could talk about the unknown God. He could philosophize with everybody else and do what everybody, because he knows how to go from law to grace, because he fight for the law. So let me get the guy that fought for the law to write Galatians. I want you to see how God is moving. Okay? So I'm fighting now. I got this guy. This guy could go to Ephesus. Why? Ephesus is a Roman city. Where's Corinth? A Roman city. How does Paul get out of jail? How could you beat a Roman? I'm a Roman Jew. So now I could write to Ephesus. I could write to Thessalonians. I could write these books in the Bible because I moved among them. I know them. So not only can I write the books, I could write it with a sense to the people that live there. Paul. Are you with me? So, the dominant language as a result became Greek. Why? Because the Greeks are all over the world. So when I'm talking about the gospel and I speak Greek, I can go all over the world. So when Christ says in Galatians chapter 4 verse 4, I came in the right season and the right time. Rome built maps. Rome built boats. Rome built roads. But the Greeks are the smart ones. So when I say go into all the world, you got maps, you got ships, you got roads. But I need a person with the language background to take it all. So a Greek, God set up Greek like he said he would in Daniel chapter 7 through chapter 10. I'll set up the Greeks because that way I could communicate the gospel wherever I want to go. Look at Galatians chapter 4 verse 4. Walk with me. But please don't come back and ask questions about tongues, okay? Let's leave it alone. All right, I'm just telling you the purpose for which it was started. That's not a dynamite. We all know that will be an atomic bomb. We want to stay focused in the conference. Galatians 4:4 says, and when the fullness of the time came, God sent forth his son, born of a woman, born under the law. Could go through roads, ships. Paul is on ships. Could speak Greek. Could reach the world. It's the right time. Okay? So that's the paragraph, first paragraph. Sorry. That's the first paragraph. Sorry, had this cough in Texas. I should have took care of it, but every medicine they gave me put me to sleep, and I want to work. So I'm trying to figure out good medicine. All right, I bought something last night at the chemist, and he said, oh, this will work real good for you. And I read the bottle, and it said, it will make you drowsy. Oh, man, I'm back to square one. Let's look at paragraph 2, okay? When it was first written, there is no punctuation marks. There was no sentences or paragraphs. These were all added later. I read this when Dr. Wongi asked me this question yesterday, I believe. Look at 1 John. So I'll go back to what I read. Look at 1 John. He gives you a great example of how the chapters just ran together. They just ran together. He says in verse 1, my little children, I am writing these things to you so that you may not sin. If you look at what he's saying, it runs together. When it comes to these chapters we call chapters, they just broke into chapters. But the chapters and all this stuff was not in there. They just wrote a letter. Who writes a letter and say chapter 1? Anybody writes a letter like that? No. We just write a letter. So the letters that we have, they broke them up so we could follow through. And then they put titles at the top of the paragraphs. So we would look at paragraph number 2 and we would say, Christ is our advocate. They put that there. That was not in the scriptures. Okay? Now, I want to make that point before I forget. Now, look at the next sentence in the second paragraph on the Roman numeral 2. It says, the books were sometimes letters written to friends, like Luke wrote to Theophilus, and later circulated to the churches. So it was written to somebody, but then it started circulating to other churches. Some were written to a particular church, Corinth, Colossae, but were later circulated to the congregations. This was important because there was obviously no Bible, only the Old Testament. Everything was being handed down by oral tradition or through the apostles' teaching. So please hear me on this. Thank you, Pastor. This one is running out. I read you some stuff yesterday. I hope you remember, so we don't have to go back to it. I kept reading you several times where it says scripture, 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 and literally taking to the Old Testament is because that's the book. That's the book that they had. And it led to a lot of problems for the New Testament church. Let me give you one. This is the book. These people are building their respect. And the books are circulating, and they're going, letters are circulating. They're going, okay, these guys know what they're doing. We're their apostles. We're seeing that they know stuff. They're given by God to us. We see them with Christ. We see Christ talking to them. So we know they're with Christ. So they're starting to gain dominance. It's one of the reasons for Pentecost. It's one of the reasons for Ananias and Sapphira dying before Peter. It's so that they can understand that the authority of Christ rests with them. So all those things happen to establish his authority. So when you see all of this taking place and the Bible keeps expanding, they're first doing it through oral tradition because you see it right there in Acts. Peter's preaching the gospel. They recorded that sermon. Okay? So you have this. When you have that taking place, what he is saying is it's being handed down, and it's handed down. They find the authenticity of it. When they find the authenticity of it, they start collecting it, and then they would circulate it. Okay? When they were circulated. And so by the time, look at the next paragraph, many other books were written, lots of them. And I list some of them there. So it became essential that believers whose hearts were turned by John the Baptist, lives saved through the life and death of Jesus Christ, matured through the teachings of the apostles. That's why the apostles rose up to be so high. They rose up to be high because they got so many books going through. They got their apocrypha. They got all these books circulating. And they're realizing, no, these people didn't walk with God like these apostles did. They had to walk with God. They had to see God. They had to know God. That's why these apostles are here. So therefore, the apostles have a specific job to write it down. When the apostles are not writing it down, we don't want to look at these different books. So the books started to raise in their authenticity. So by the time you get to AD 95, you got the New Testament. 95 years after Christ's death and resurrection. That's when you have this collection coming together. Now, because that's what I'm saying. Please remember this statement. The churches are using them while other people are writing, and they recognize that these other people are not people from God, spoken to directly by Christ. So therefore, since they weren't spoken to directly by Christ, we are not looking at their writings. We want to make sure. That's why you got Paul talking to the Berean Christians, and they said, we will get back with you, but we need to go check you out because you are born not the same way like them. See, we know them. We don't know you. So we're going to check you out because all we're concerned about are we listening to God. See, Old Testament, they were listeners to God. If they didn't talk right about God, he says, I stoned them to death right away. So you didn't have a lot of false prophets then because they were dead. They were stoned. You remember the guy that God says, deliver this message. But when you deliver this message, I need you to come right back here. The guy just delivers the message and decides to go a different way. He eats him with a lion. He didn't play. Deuteronomy chapter 18, if you find a prophet that speaks the word of God and it is not my word, stone him to death. So you're coming from Jews who are influencing the New Testament church, so they want authentic writers. And that's why you start coming into these New Testament books, because they're looking at the apostles who directly spoke with Christ, who directly had interactions with Christ, and those apostles who had directly interacted with Christ, those are the ones that are writing. Those are the guys we listen to, not anybody else. Remember Balaam? Nope, not listening to you, Moses. So, you know, I forgot to have questions at the beginning, so yes, please, sir.
Yeah, I need some clarification. You just said something that 95 years after Christ, and after the birth of Christ, we already have the New Testament.
Yeah, that's true.
And then there are these other books that they say these are not part of the scripture.
Mm-hmm.
What was the work of the Nicene Council?
To push away all those wrong books. Push away all those books and solidify.
And when did it happen?
Yeah, they want to make sure that the books they're looking at, that these books, the churches say, they're not just going together looking at books, looking at the Greek or whatever. They're coming together looking at it going, their reputation of these people speak volumes. And how they led the church, developed the church, how when people did these things, it worked. So it has to be inspired because it's spirit to spirit. So no human person could say what's right or wrong. Pharisees, Sadducees, high priests, he made us see them to know it doesn't work. If I come to this Bible with human minds, I nail Jesus to the cross, even though I'm in church, in the temple, studying it every day. He showed us that contrast. So what they're looking at is these people are spiritual people because they impact our spirit. And we see the churches growing and finding strength and being productive because of their writings, so they have to come from God. They looked at the fruit and the authenticity of that person who saw Christ. They saw him. Look at 1 John. Look at what John would say in verse 1. Just to give you a reference, because I like to do that. What was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our own eyes, what we have looked and touched with our hands, corresponding to the word of life. They are looking for those people. And if these other writers don't match up, we don't read you. They were trained, Deuteronomy chapter 18, to not listen to false teachers. You stoned them. You stoned them because you must protect the voice of God. My sheep will know my voice and they will follow me. The voice of God. The voice of God stopped, continues. And Jesus, who is the voice of God, is the last voice to say anything. Revelation. All right. Let's look at this. So the next paragraph there, they was decided basically on the authority of the writers. A few hundred years of testing. They had years to test this stuff. Now, I said few hundred years is too long. There should be few hundred years would include Old Testament. Okay, 20 years would include Old Testament. It took time to accept 3 John. The last 2 sentences there in that paragraph. The question was more about what to exclude rather than what to include. Please understand, they're trying to get rid of things. They're not trying to get things in. That's the struggle I have. Okay, this is a personal note. Just drop it. Don't listen to it then keenly. Please, it's done. And I don't like to put my personal stuff in here, but I do deal with this a lot over the 40-some years I've been doing this. And that is, people want to add to the Bible. These guys were busy trying to get rid of things. It's the total opposite. The persons that were closest to the time of Christ, closest to the time of Moses and all these people, they were trying to get rid of those writers who were writing without authority. We're busy trying to put people in. The further we get from the original church. That's amazing to me. It's like we can't be content that this is good. They were content to find out what is the voice of God, and I'm done. Once I learn what the voice of God is, I am done. We keep trying to find him. Look at this. God preserved the books for years. He gave them their authority. By inspiring the writers, he illuminated the minds of believers. See, we're back to that revelation, inspiration, illumination. The process was solidified 400 years after the death of Christ. Okay? There you go with the Nicene Council, Pastor. 400 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, you got a Bible. 400 years later. Okay? In the 400 years, we found, no, that came later. Dead Sea Scrolls came later. So there's the 400 years. Okay, again, this is a note from Paul Cannings. Don't buy it, don't believe it, don't care. Okay, don't do it. This is just my thought, how God works. 400 years, he ain't said nothing. Took 400 years to get everything together so he could spend eternity trying to get us right. There ain't a verse for that. So you don't have to believe it. I just see how God works sometimes interestingly. That 400 years he ain't said nothing. Now he's going to have the last word. You know who's running the show when they have the last word. Okay? He's going to have the last word. So he made sure 400 years later it's all together in one book. Because he don't plan to shut up. Now, the order of the books was set logically. I went through that basically, so you know about it. The doctrine of the church in Acts must be grounded in the fact. So historical books with Matthew forming the basis of transitional from Old Testament. I went through most of this. Okay, I'm going to read some of it just so you would see. I'm not just skipping notes. I took this section and instead of putting it here, I put it here. Does that make sense? So why I felt it was a better introduction than to come later. Okay? All right? So Paul's writings followed logically. Chapter number 5, you got the what they call the prison epistles, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, and then Philemon needed to be added to that. You got 1st and 2nd Timothy came later because they're grouped this together because we call those the pastoral epistles. Hebrews and James, Hebrews, it's written to a group. So I'm basically just summarizing for you all that that I talked about earlier. And what am I trying to prove? You have a solid book, solid information here. All right, I messed up and I didn't let you ask any questions, so it looks like we can even get to our last class today. We're not that far off. But I'm missing something in your notes here, checking it out here, because I'd like, oh no, is it in here? I hope I didn't take it out. Transmission. Yes, transmission is in here. I want you to see how it was transitioned to where you have it now as the Bible. But let me stop, see if you have any questions that you would like for me to answer, and then when we come back, we'll do that, and then we'll start on what is theology if we have time this afternoon. So tomorrow we get done on time. And what I like to end my teaching time with is just, you could ask any question you want. I like to end that way, okay? Because we're basically controlling what we're talking about for like a week. So give you a chance to answer, ask whatever questions you want. And I do that at the last class tomorrow. So if we get a little bit ahead, come ready to ask any questions you got, okay? Tomorrow, Lord willing. And that way I serve you best. And I'll put verses to everything, okay? So you can go home, you can look at it, you can read it. Please don't forget. A verse finds its meaning by the words in it. The word finds its meaning by the paragraph. The paragraph finds its meaning in the chapter. The chapter finds its meaning in that book or letter. A book or letter finds its meaning in the set of books, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, prison epistles, pastoral epistles, gospels, right? It finds its meaning there. And if the meaning that you find don't tie into the Bible, it's the wrong one. That's how I study. God, if I finish studying this and it doesn't line up, I'm wrong. You're right all the time. That's how I study. Any questions? Yes.
I just want to understand the woman in Revelation 12, who she was.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Again, since that's what I just did is a good segue to this, let's back up into chapter 11 to make this make sense, okay? The first part of Revelation, the churches are no good, only 2 are good. Chapter 5, Christ builds his throne and shows he's dominant. Chapter 6, he starts punishing people through the trumpets, etc. So by the time you get to chapter 9, by chapter 10, he goes back to this little book that he's going to give to John, chapter 10. Well, after he talks about this little book, meaning when we get to heaven, even though it's going to take us eternity, which never ends, to learn what he did not put in here, and to learn what in here means. Not we're going to be in church every day, but he's going to teach us this. There's a little bit of information called this little book I'm not going to tell you about. Now, I don't know why, so if you ask me why, he didn't tell me why, so I don't know why. But then he starts, when he gets that all set up, because he's punished the wicked, he's punished the evil. So now you're in the first part of the tribulation period. Okay? Now, when that happens, he pulls the people together and puts something around them to protect them as they come in the temple, because he knows Satan is coming loose. Okay? So since people get saved during the tribulation period, right, a church is born. Okay? Don't forget. Let's just make that the tribulation period, the red carpet. Okay? The rapture is here. Right? When the rapture takes place, the dead in Christ rise first. Those who are alive go second. We got the bema seat in the clouds because we are spiritual beings, glorified bodies / spiritual beings. So we could be in the clouds and not fall down. Okay? Now, we go to the tribulation period, and the first half of the tribulation period is horrible. People are dying. It's really bad. No. First part of tribulation is wonderful time. I'm sorry, got it wrong. Wrong is wrong. Don't dance with wrong. So you come into the first part of tribulation period, everything is wonderful. Everything is wonderful. People go, wow, my wife is gone. Oh man, my husband is gone. These church folks were telling the truth. People start coming to Christ, coming to Christ, coming to Christ, coming to Christ. So the church is growing now. right? But Israel decided they want to build a treaty with this dominant figure. In other words, Satan doesn't come yet. He's just the Antichrist. He's just against Christ. They build a relationship with this dominant figure. When they finish building a relationship with this dominant figure, guess what happens? They think everything is wonderful. At the middle of the tribulation period, everything seems great. But once you transition over, he breaks every treaty with Israel, and Satan starts coming out the grass. So Christ, knowing his system, builds his church. Look at verse 1. And there was given to me a measuring rod like a staff. And so the key thing is measuring rod like a staff. And someone said, get up and measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship in it. Leave out of the court which is outside of the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, and they will tread under the feet of the holy city for 42 months, just like Daniel talked about. Okay? When that happens, there's a group of people not protected in this temple by that measuring rod. Are you with me so far? Okay? So the two witnesses come up and they start judging these people by sending fire and burning them. Well, Satan is mad. So Satan comes out and he fights them. Look at verse 7. And when they finish their testimony, the beast that comes up out of the abyss, he's in hell, will make war with them and overcome them and kill them. And people will celebrate it. They will celebrate these dead witnesses. Don't forget, I don't know if it's here in Africa, but in their world, which you saw in places like Arab and Iraq and so on, if you want to dishonor somebody, don't bury them. Just let them rot wherever they died. That's how they did it. Burying somebody is to honor them. That's why folks get up in a funeral and lie a lot. Okay, now I shouldn't have said that way. Telling how wonderful the person was when they know they weren't. But that's what people, it's a time of honoring. Right? Okay? I'm sorry. That was an unnecessary sentence. But they're honoring the person. Well, in their day, we're not honoring you with a funeral. We just let you rot. So they leave the two angels out there to rot. The problem is they come back to life. And they ascend to heaven. Satan is mad now. So because Satan is now mad, he comes to the woman who's the church. He says in verse 1 of chapter 12, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she gave birth. She cried out, bringing in labor and in pain to this birth. Then another sign appeared from heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 7 thrones, 7 horns. You're always mimicking God. And on his head were 7 diadems. And his tail, he's trying to intimidate the church, doing all kind of crazy stuff. Okay? When Jesus Christ shows up in the New Testament, lots of demons. They want to stop him. By the time you get to Revelation, you don't hear about none of them. Church has failed. I ain't got to stop nothing. Okay? So what you see is Satan is up there going, just keeping a lot of stuff because she's got this moon. Guess what? This woman is a church. She's got a moon on her or something. So Satan is in the skies trying to intimidate her, but she doesn't get intimidated. That's the church. The woman represents the church. Huh? Yes. He takes his tail. That's how Satan could imitate anything. Satan is like, okay, I'm going to read you a verse that's going to make you see how tricky Satan is. Satan allows himself to be such a huge dragon that he could be up in the skies smashing stars. Hard for us to imagine, but that's what he does. He's trying to intimidate the church. Why? He's a roaring lion. He makes a lot of noise. Or the 12 stars. Oh, the nations of Israel. The nations of Israel are now a part of the church. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Yes. Pastor Daniel. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Hey,
What is your comment on what is happening in Israel right now?
happening?
In Israel. A battle in Israel.
Oh, Israel?
Yeah.
Yeah, happened to concerning the battle of Israel. People have asked me that, and I can't place it into Revelation. I just see it as a precursor, and when I show them it's a precursor is in the time when Israel is becoming, God is rescuing it. The war he describes in Revelation is a really urban war. So there are like going into homes and stuff, but all I could say is a precursor, but it's not in Revelation. Okay, I couldn't, when I studied it, put it in Revelation. I just see it as a part of the times. There are going to be wars, rumors of wars. People will die from earthquakes and stuff. So I just see it as a part of Matthew 24. I'll read it. I couldn't put, okay, don't forget, I'm being careful, Pastor Daniel. I don't see myself as, the professor of the whole world. So that's why I'm careful to say, when I kept trying to do it, I could not put it in Revelation what's happening right now. Where I put it is right here. In verse 24, chapter 24, Jesus is trying to tell us the signs of his return. And he says it this way. Jesus came out of the temple and was going away when his disciples came up to him out of the temple buildings to him. And he said, do you not see all the things? Truly I say to you, that's what, remember I talk about, people could see, but seeing in the Bible physically is not seeing. So he says, I'm seeing things, and you don't see them. Truly I say to you, not one stone here will be left upon another, which will be torn down. You can't see that far ahead. Fully God, fully man. And he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came. So that means they left the temple, went to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came privately saying, tell us, that shows you, that's why, matter of fact, preaching tonight, talking about the heart of a disciple. The heart of a disciple follows him to Mount of Olives and says, tell us, what will these things, when did these things happen? And well be the signs of your coming. Notice the Pharisees didn't follow him there. Sadducees didn't. His disciples did. Tell me these things. I want to know. Everybody else don't care to know. And he says, the end of the age. And Jesus answered and said to them, see to it that no one misleads you. For many will come in my name saying, I'm the Christ. I will mislead many. And you will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for these things must take place. But that is not yet the end. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pains. So I heard somebody trying to predict when Christ is coming back. He says, run from that person. No man knows when I'm coming back. I don't know as a full man when I'm coming back. I just know that that is a precursor to my return. So I put it there, Pastor Daniel. Put it there. And then Romans 1, where people are becoming more and more depraved, so wars will become more and more horrific. When we hear what people do in wars, it's going to be worse than we have ever heard with our own eyes, heard with our own ears, or seen with our eyes. It'll be bad because man is getting worse and worse and worse, and he's getting more and more depraved. So the things that he would do, you wouldn't even think a person would think it. So that's why the wars are so ugly. Yes.
In 1948, Israel gets back. The nation is reestablished.
1948.
Yeah. The first part of Trump's term, the first term, Trump, which word do I use? Do I use the word for declares? He endorses that Jerusalem is the capital city of Israel.
Yeah.
And then the government begins to establish its headquarters moving from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Can you place that anywhere in the progressive Reformation? Because these are some of the things that Scripture will talk earlier about the reestablishment of Jerusalem. And we can see these things coming. While I connected that to what you have said about the question from Daniel.
Yeah, all I see that is setting up this Antichrist creating one world out of Israel. So God is, for instance, as you look at the world, it's becoming one world. The currency through Europe is becoming one world. AI, internet, is slowly becoming an opportunity for one man to run the world. He doesn't have to travel everywhere. He could sit in one room, dominate the televisions like you see in Russia, and teach the whole world what he wants. He could run it through AI. Once he takes over the technology, he's got it. So what I see, since Israel is centered about what's going to happen, I just see God allowing different people to do different things to bring. Don't forget what I said about the providence of God. Nobody could stop his agenda. It just happens. His time is his time. I read you Galatians chapter 4, verse 4. He came in the right season and in the right time. So when he's coming, it's going to be the right season and the right time. Places like Matthew 24, I just read it, 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians. He can tell us this is when I'm coming. But right now when I look at the world, it's being organized. When I studied Revelation and then taught it for 2 years at Living Word. So I went through it verse by verse for 2 years, 2.5 years. I taught the church. So what I see is God in his administration, folks will take that and make that dispensationalism, but in his administration, everything but man's free will, not making any man do anything, he could see that far ahead, is organizing Israel for the first half of the tribulation period. That's what he's done, in my eyes, when I study Revelation, to that question. The other question with Pastor Daniel, I see that as Matthew 24. The war with Russia, all this stuff. Then we finished that war, you hear about another one. Just got a bunch of texts from friends in Jamaica. That's a mess. Tornado 5, category 5, wiped out stuff. Pastor friends texting me, man, here's my house. Total mess. Here's the church, blown to bits. The sign of the times. What it said, global warming, right? Watch that carefully. By the time you get to the end of Revelation, how is he gonna reset the earth? Burn it. So everything is being reset. We can't stop it. That's what I'm saying to people. I don't try to dictate the hand of God. I just trust it. See? Because global warming, that's a force. And no, look at that stuff. There's more. I was on a ship, on a cruise ship, watching glaciers fall apart. It's warming. And I'm believing it because when I look at the end, he burns up the earth and the heavens. So the 3 heavens. The first one in front of us. There's a second one that angels come out of. Catholic Church uses that to say it's purgatory. 3rd heavens is paradise. That's why Paul would say, I went to the 3rd heavens. He's making a point to say, I was in the presence of God. Okay? So, as you look at this, he's going to burn it up. So when I see things like that, he is getting ready for what he's going to do. Naturally, the way it is. Why is that happening? The ozone layer is spaceships, all kind of stuff going through them. Yeah.
I'm asking, is there any connection in Ezekiel 22 from verse 15 or down to 19 or down there? Is there any connection between Ezekiel 22 and whatever is happening in Israel?
You know, I haven't read that in a while. And when I'm not like 100% sure stuff, I'd rather stand and say, I can't do that right now. I'm just my commitment to the Lord. But I haven't read that and thought of the question that Pastor Daniel's asked. So I haven't read it in a while. And when I read it, I didn't think of that question. And my commitment to the Lord is until I am solid on something, I would rather be accountable to him and say, God, I don't want to teach nothing that I don't know for sure. So all I could tell you is I'll read it, remember Pastor Daniel's question, and see if I could tie them together. But I honestly don't know.
So, what do you think about, say about...
One second, I'm sorry, Pastor.
You said about global warming, and there is also, what is this they're calling climate change. What do you say to that?
I must admit I have a bias because science is my hobby. That's what people, but I'm sorry, I'm saying that and my sons come to my head saying, Dad, your science is 40 years old. But left to myself, if God didn't call me in my senior year in college, I would have been a scientist. I love science. I think you see a lot about God in science, a lot about God in science. So when you start looking at the scientific reports done by credible people, the earth is warming up just by credible people, not politicians. I don't listen to politicians because they're not scientists. So when they're talking, I just turn them off. If a non-doctor comes to me and says, I think you got problems with your knees, I'm not listening to him. I'm going to the person who works on knees. Okay? So I don't listen to politicians at all when they talk about global science. I listen to the scientists. And when I look at the scientists, and when I look at the things like how the temperature when I walk into the beach at Galveston, it's warmer. So when I experience those things, and I'm standing on a ship and seeing the glaciers coming down, when I see and it's going to happen. Think about it for a minute. In the days of Noah, they never saw rain. That's why they're doubting him. There was no rain. So what happened was the ozone, God bust this canopy that caused the earth to be fertile and all these different things and all these huge animals to be on it and everything else. He burst that canopy. And if you read it, it would say the water also came from the ground. It came up under the ground. So it burst out. So what I'm saying by that is, from that point forward, man is cutting down trees, building buildings. But what do buildings do? Concrete. What does concrete give off? Heat. So some of this stuff, when you look at it and you see it increasing, you can just follow the scientific people while you look at it. Trees reduce that heat. They absorb it. They use it for photosynthesis so we could breathe. When you cut them down, so they're trying to save the Amazon so bad. Because if you start cutting down the place that scientists have proved help the earth to stay cool, we're in worse situation, but they're cutting it down. So what I'm saying is, when you look at the facts, I turn off politicians, it's happening. I don't listen to a non-scientific person tell me about science. That makes absolutely no sense to me. None.
So then that can legitimize the Planned Parenthood?
Sorry?
So that can legitimize Planned Parenthood?
I think the two are totally separate.
Well, they are not, because the more population we have, the more we are destroying our own earth. What do you think about that?
I believe that Planned Parenthood is sinful. Okay? Nobody plans to parent. Why? Plans to be a parent, because it's Psalm 127. I will decide when a child is born. He purposely showed us that with Sarah. He showed us a nation is born when I say so. because we're following his commands. That's why I keep saying to everybody, all throughout this time when we're doing bibliology, I'm just a messenger carrying out what he's doing. I can't change it. He's going to get it done, with or without me. So I might as well just join him. Okay? So what I'm saying to you, he's showing us from the time he started with Adam and Eve, when children will be born. Think about it for a minute. If children were born before they ate the fruit, what kind of problem would we have? We would have people that are good and people that are evil, and these people could never go wrong because they stayed good because they went and picked from the tree of life. So when Adam and Eve sinned, I got to kick you out because you can't have kids going and pick from the tree of life. Where do you see the tree of life again? Revelation. I just read it. There's a tree of life. Who's the tree of life in the New Testament? Jesus. So God is literally made Adam and Eve not have any kids. But outside the garden, a whole nation is born. Sarah, to bring a whole nation, born. You got how could Ruth have a husband before she marries Boaz and never have a child? But as soon as she marries Boaz, there's a child in the line of Jesus. So God is showing us when writer in Psalm 127 says, every child is a gift from God. Then David made it worse in chapter 50 or 51 that says, in sin I was conceived. So what David is saying to us is that no matter what we try to do, the decision for a child to come in this world is a God decision. It doesn't belong to nobody. So abortion, Planned Parenthood is sinful. It's just sinful. Nobody decides that. The only person that decides that is God. So I don't believe in Planned Parenthood. Now there's some aspects of Planned Parenthood that people say you're not looking at the whole picture. And that side of the picture, I honestly haven't looked at in detail. So I can't comment on something I haven't looked at in detail that they said is something that they have. But the side that I am with, I don't agree with abortion. We have a ministry in our church called Anew. Anew for people who've had abortions before they join our church or secretly, and for women who are considering abortions, and for women who've had kids they don't really want because they came from rape or whatever. We're working to find a way to connect them to places where their kids could be adopted. So instead of me beating up a congregation that abortion is wrong, I not only teach them it's wrong, I created a ministry thanks to the women the women are the ones that took my idea and the stuff that I wrote for the ministry, and they have taken it to a whole nother level. God forbid I take credit for that. But they've taken it to another level, and those women are serving those kind of women that are going through those things. They're serving those women that are going through those particular issues. So what I'm saying to you is I don't agree with abortion. I bluntly say I don't, and I create a ministry to help it. So help those women, because some women are in such guilt that they aborted a child, and they suffer with that guilt. So what I'm saying is, so Planned Parenthood to me is that. Climate change is this. They try to put the two together because politicians need to win offices. So if I put the two together, I could go and win people to vote for me. So when I'm hearing a politician who doesn't know nothing about biology, I don't believe them. I don't even listen to them. But these kind of questions, if y'all could hold it for tomorrow, I appreciate it. Because I want to stick with things. But what I'm saying to you is, I don't see... For instance, I said this last comment. So we can, any question you want to ask tomorrow, I'm here. But Pastor, this is your house, and I respect that. I promise you. Anybody that know Paul Cannings, I walk into a man's house, I will respect the person who God established there. So I'll answer your question, because that's just me. You ask any of these people that know me for years, I don't play with that, because God doesn't, and he's the boss. But what I'm saying to you is I don't listen to these people. I don't, because they're politicians. For instance, Trump is running for office. So he needs the evangelicals because he just gave up the homosexuals. So I'm going to tell them I'm committed to abortion and homosexuality. I'm committed to that, those two things never going on in our country. So he got all these white evangelicals to rush to his side while he has 34 felonies, most likely a pedophile, a person who can't stop lying, and the list goes on. So what they have done, when they ask me, they repeated the story of Saul. The church is supposed to fight against abortion. The church is supposed to teach people about marriage and the sanctity of marriage, not a politician who is in a country that is a democracy. You can't, in a democracy, tell a person who they sleep with. In a democracy, you can't tell a person who they marry. You can just talk to people about it, but you can never control a country to stop it. The place you could do that is the church. So all he's doing is he needs votes. I'm around politicians. One of my best friends was the mayor. One of my good friends was the mayor of Houston. We have something going on at our church right now that is very difficult for our church. I just, this week, called the mayor, who is a new mayor. This other mayor passed away. This is a new mayor. So I understand politicians, Pastor, and they just have to work the crowd to gain votes. So they say whatever we need to hear to go gain votes when they know some of the stuff they can't do. So I don't believe them. I use them for what the Bible tells me to use them for. We got Kings, 1st, 2nd Kings. Tells us all about what God thinks about government and politicians. We could study them. He'll tell us what to do. But I'm not going to talk against your president. I'm not going to do that. All right, what time is it? 12 o'clock is lunch. We got 6 more minutes. Oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry. Pastor Nicodemus, you finally got saved at night.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. You have tried to help us go through about the literature of the Bible. Now, my question is, why Hellenism, this Greek culture, became so powerful during that time of writing the New Testament? What was the problem, or what happened so that they became so dominant?
What I have read on that, and I'm not the authority on Hellenism, but I've read on that. That's why the Pharisees were started to start with. They were blocking Hellenism. Okay? They actually started out for a good purpose when the Pharisees started. They were trying to block the flow of Hellenism into Jerusalem. The persons who bring Hellenism, like you have here in Africa, right? I came to Africa one time, and I went to Nigeria before I actually came to Bongoma that year. And I was in Nigeria, and the Nigerian walks up to me and he goes, "Sir, where are you from?" Nigerians sometimes intimidate me because they like, come up to you, "Where are you from?" So I said, "Oh, I'm from Houston." "Oh, so that's why you wear those clothes." I go, "Yeah." So you were colonized like I am." So I said, "Well, why do you wear your clothes?" Because he had on Nigerian clothes, headgear. He says, "Because I'm Nigerian and they don't colonize me." So for me, I'm thinking the whole time, he's in Nigeria. So I'm in his country, so he wears his clothes, right? But to him, I am not taking the colonization of a white man to tell me how to dress. See, when England came, look at Kenya and Uganda and these nations speaking English. That's an English outfit. That's not African. So the same thing that has happened in Kenya and many nations around the world, America, England, when all around the world, the same thing happened. People didn't just come and rule your country. They brought their culture. And when they brought their culture, they have Swahili-speaking people talking English. Same thing. And God just used it. Like I'm here in Kenya, I could speak English. We don't even need a translator. There you go. God just used it. Let me just write my Bible in Greek. I could get to the world. He didn't fight it. He just used it. Because this was a part of his plan. How do you know it's a part of his plan? Read Daniel. It's a part of, he could look that far ahead and say, I'm good with these nations rising and falling. Remember Nebuchadnezzar? Oh, you thought you rose up? No, I needed you to rise up so my nation, when they come into Babylon, they got a strong city that could support them, and they could buy homes, and they could establish their kids, and they could take care of their kids. So what I did was, like in Egypt, I made you powerful, Mr. Egyptian Pharaoh, so that when I put 2 million people in your country, they could eat, they could feed their lambs, they could do all of this. So now when I'm done with you, you gone. Nebuchadnezzar, you think I'm something special? You're something special? Eat grass for 7 years. See if you get out of that mindset. So God showing us, I raised the nation up to accomplish something. When I'm done accomplishing it, they can go away. As I'm saying to y'all, please understand in this whole bibliology, he has an agenda. You can't stop it. Yeah, that's why I could actually read you this verse. I believe it's in Luke 17, where he says, I will use the unrighteous person to bless the righteous. It's also in Proverbs. So sometimes he raises up a nation to accomplish what he wants, like he's done America, but America's going to go away. You can't find America nowhere in Revelation. 0. It doesn't exist as a powerful nation by revelation. That scares people in America. One of the reasons why Trump is in office is because it's scaring white people. White people know that by the time of 2040, they are no longer the dominant race in America. So they got to treat the people from Guatemala and everything like that. They call it internally. I've got some good white friends. They call it internally the browning of America. And there's so much history that is bad that has been done by the whites when they came in and destroying Indians and putting them on plantations, wiping out whole tribes. All these things, they're now those things they can't bury anymore. So they come into light, coming to light, coming to light, coming to light. So what they have to do, they have to stop the browning of America. And that's why you have the immigration system that bad. It's called the browning of America by the year 2040. So I don't, nowhere in this book, nowhere, you go to Revelation, can't find America.
Okay, is it okay to differ with you a little bit? Okay. I think, unless I misunderstood you, you say that Trump is scaring a lot of white people, but I beg to disagree with that. If anybody, the white people are more scared of Obamas and the Bidens than they are, or they could be with the Trump.
Think about it for a minute. Sorry.
But maybe we don't want to get into that.
No, what I'm going to say to you, though, is think about that for a minute. Just think about it for a minute. Right after Obama ran for office and won and spent 4 years, America voted for Trump, and he's a racist. If you look at the decisions Trump has made, he has cleaned out all the black people from any positions of authority in America. Okay, so he's a racist. He literally done so much, there's no question to anybody who Trump is. So now, let me one second. So what I'm saying to you is, when you hear the browning of America by 2040, who will you vote for? A racist. So white people rush to vote for Trump because they're scared of 2040. So what I'm sitting down talking with politicians. I'm sitting down talking with people. I have a white person that today supports Power Walk. And he would tell me to my face, sir, bluntly speaking, they know he's a racist. They want him to be a racist because they don't like that Obama brought a lot of black people in. They don't like the fact of his homosexuality and his abortion agenda. And he brought in a lot of black people, and Biden was under him, and Biden brought a lot of black people. He put people in the Supreme Court that are black. He made generals black, all these people. So this browning is happening faster than they thought. So we need to get somebody in office that cleans it. And if you look at all the stuff Trump is doing, I really want black people to pay attention, please, because they're not realizing they're putting America back 60 years in racism. I really need America to pay attention. I keep telling people, pay attention to Trump. He wants to get rid of Martin Luther King Day. He wants to stop black people from being able to vote. He's fighting that now.
That's not true.
I'm there.
Yeah, you are there, but I'm there too. So I can tell you.
Okay, Pastor. I don't want to disagree on politics.
Yeah,
I'm not here to
I beg to
but I'm talking to people in Washington.
First of all, Trump is not a racist.
He is. I'm sorry, Pastor.
He's
really,
not.
Really
I think Biden.
I'm not a
Biden and
politician.
the Obamas are more racists than Trump is. And I don't have time to tell you, but I just asked for your permission.
I don't want to do. No, I'm
with you.
No. I don't want to get into politics. I'm going to tell you, I have people that actually sit in Washington that I trust, sit there, and they just don't come up with that. And they give me facts, Pastor, facts, not rhetoric from Trump, facts. He is making decisions to push black people and brown people down, and he's doing it. I could show you, if I had the time, systematically how he's doing it. And it's not my talk. I could show you people who are no longer in office, people who did great jobs. I could show you who's firing, factually. Yes. All right, let's get out of politics, though. All right. I'm not a politician, I'm sorry.
Sasa ninauliza, kulikuwa wakati Bwana Yesu alisulubiwa.
She wants to ask about when Jesus was crucified.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a question.
Okay.
Sasa wakati Bwana Yesu alisulubiwa,
When Jesus Christ was crucified, there were crucified 3 of them, together with the thieves.
Yes.
One on the right, one on the left.
Yes.
There is this one who told Jesus, you healed, you saved others, and you resurrected others. Help yourself from this place. There is this other one who said, he said that I know that you're the Son of God. Whom Jesus told that today we are going to be with you in paradise.
Say that? So when Jesus said what? When Jesus said?
The other thief.
That they're a thief?
Yeah, the one who confessed Jesus.
Is a thief.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yesu akamwambia, na wewe tutakuwa katika ufalme wa Mungu na wewe. Sasa swali ni pia hapa sasa katika hivyo kusulubiwa, kuna pahali neno imesema, kuna pahali alienda chini na akanyang'anya Shetani funguo.
The question is,
nataka kuuliza ndio nifahamu vizuri, ni wakati gani sasa walikutana na huyu mwizi, na ni wakati gani alienda akanyang'anya Shetani funguo?
the question is, when Jesus died, She's saying that Jesus went and took the keys from the enemy, that is the devil, hell. Now she's asking between when Jesus went to hell and when he declared to this thief that you're going to be with you in paradise. How did it happen, or the duration, which took place first? Whether he went down there first or they went to paradise.
Okay, no problems. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3. First Peter chapter 3 tells us the story. Now he didn't take the keys though. Could somebody translate? I want to make sure it's being understood. Could you keep translating for me, Pastor Robert?
Anthony.
That's Anthony. Sorry. Could you? Okay. First thing is, when Jesus went to hell.
Jambo la kwanza ni ya kwamba wakati shetani alienda kuzimu. Yesu alipoenda kuzimu.
He didn't take the keys.
Hakuchukua funguo.
Jesus gave the keys to the church.
Yesu alipeana funguo kwa kanisa.
I know that.
Ninajua hivyo.
Because of Matthew 16.
Kwa sababu ya Mathayo 16.
And Matthew 18.
Na Mathayo 18.
So the church,
kwa hivyo kanisa,
has the keys,
ndio iko na funguo,
to block Satan from coming in,
ya kufunga shetani kutoingia ndani,
and a way to keep him out.
Na vile ambavyo watamtoa nje.
So he didn't take the keys.
Kwa hivyo hakuchukua funguo.
But while Jesus Christ was in the tomb,
lakini wakati Yesu alikuwa katika kaburi.
Let me say that differently.
Awacha niseme kwa utofauti.
When Jesus,
wakati Yesu,
gave up the ghost, his life,
wakati aliachilia uhai wake,
this is where he said he went.
Hapa ndio nasema alienda.
Read this for me in Swahili, please. 1 Peter chapter 3. Verse 18 through verse 20. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18 through verse 20.
Petero wa tatu, 1 Peter 3:18 to 20. Kwa maana Kristo naye aliteswa mara moja kwa ajili ya dhambi, mwenye haki kwa ajili yao wasio haki, ili atulete kwa Mungu. Mwili wake ukauawa, bali roho yake akahuishwa, ambayo kwa hiyo aliwaendea roho waliokaa kifungoni, akawahubiri watu wasiotii hapo zamani uvumilivu wa Mungu ulipokuwa ukigoja siku za Nuhu, safina ilipokuwa ikitengenezwa, ambamo ndani yake wachache, yani watu 4 waliokoka kwa maji.
That's where he went.
Hapo ndipo alipoenda.
But nowhere in those verses,
lakini hakuna katika yale maandiko
he took the keys.
Ambapo alichukua funguo.
Let me show you where the keys are.
Wacha nikuonyeshe mahali funguo zipo.
Matthew 16.
Mathayo 16.
He says, verse 18.
Mstari wa 18.
Please read verse 18 to verse 19.
Mathayo 16 mstari wa 18 mpaka 19. Nami nakuambia, wewe ndiwe Petero, na juu ya mwamba huu nitalijenga kanisa langu, wala milango ya kuzimu haitalishinda. Nami nitakupa wewe funguo za ufalme wa mbinguni, na lolote utakalolifunga duniani litakuwa limefungwa mbinguni, na lolote utakalolifungua duniani litakuwa limefunguliwa mbinguni.
So the keys,
kwa hivyo funguo,
is brought up again in chapter 18.
Inaonekana tena katika aya 18. Chapter 18.
Verse 17 through verse 18.
Mstari wa 17, Mathayo 18 mstari wa 17 na 18. That is Matthew 18,
Yes.
verse 17.
Verse 17 to verse 18.
Na alipowasikiliza wao, liambie kanisa, na asipolisikiliza kanisa pia, nawe kwako kama mtu wa mataifa na mtu wa ushuru. Amini na waambieni, yeyote mtakayoyafunga duniani, yatakuwa yamefungwa mbinguni, na yeyote mtakayofungua duniani, yatakuwa yamefunguliwa mbinguni.
Let me explain the keys.
Wacha nieleze funguo.
Jesus Christ
Yesu Kristo
in Matthew 16
katika Mathayo 16
is speaking to the apostles.
anaongelesha mitume.
And apostles, he's saying he's going to give the keys to the apostles.
Atapatiana funguo kwa mitume.
The keys
Funguo
are his word,
ni neno lake,
and they will write it down.
na wataiandika hilo neno.
When the disciples write it down,
Wakati mitume wataliandika,
it's because Satan
ni kwa sababu shetani
will come in the church,
atakuja kwa kanisa
and he's telling them
na anawaambia
to use the keys.
watumie hizi funguo
If he made it all the way in,
vile ambavyo wataruhusu,
use the word
watumie neno
to open the gates
kufungua milango
and push him out.
na kumfukuza nje.
Once you push him out,
Wakati mnamfukuza nje,
use the word of God
utumia neno la Mungu
to keep
tena
him out.
kumweka kule nje.
So look at Acts 20.
Angalia katika Matendo ya Mitume 20.
In Acts 20,
Katika Matendo ya Mitume 20,
look at verse 27.
katika mstari wa 27
And read all the way through to verse 31.
mpaka mstari wa 31. Kwa maana si kujiepusha na kuwahubiri habari ya kusudi lote la Mungu. Jitunzeni nafsi zenu na lile kundi lote nalo ambalo Roho Mtakatifu amewaweka ninyi kuwa waangalizi ndani yake, mpate kuridhisha kanisa lake Mungu alilolinunua kwa damu yake mwenyewe. Najua mimi ya kuwa baada ya kuondoka kwangu, mbwa mwitu wakali wataingia kwenu, wasilihurumie kundi. Tena katika ninyi wenyewe watainuka watu wakisema mapotovu, wawavute hao wanafunzi wawaandamie wao. Kwa hiyo kesheni mkikumbuka ya kwamba miaka 3 usiku na mchana sikuacha kumwonya kila mtu kwa machozi.
Satan entered the church through leaders, right? And Paul is telling them,
Paul anawaambia,
sorry. It's okay. And Paul is telling them, I gave you all the scriptures.
Paul anasema ya kwamba niliwapatia maneno yote.
An apostle
Na mitume
to keep Satan out.
ili ya kwamba mweke shetani nje.
The word of God
Neno la Mungu
are the keys.
ndio funguo,
But he gave that to the church
na ndio alilolipatiana kwa kanisa
through the apostles.
kupitia mitume. The question is, sorry.
We're so late for lunch. Okay, all right.
The question is, she's asking, does it then mean that Jesus did not go to Hades?
Yes. No, Jesus went to, I read you 1 Peter chapter 3.
For the keys.
Oh, no. Jesus, the keys are not in hell.
Funguo haziko kuzi.
No, he is the key. Nothing. Nothing. It's saying he didn't do nothing. Okay.
All right. Let's have order. I think our time is over. We should go for lunch.
No.
And then we should come and get an answer to that question.
Help me.